Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a wonderful show for you this evening. David Copeland, Director of Sales for Tecnam Aircraft, is going to be here, and I can't wait to share my experience with seeing these aircraft and David's amazing background with all of you. It really is fascinating to see a cool aircraft company and some of the wonderful things that they are doing. Before we get started, just a few quick things. First of all, our Fly to Win challenge just completed one phase and now we're into another one. We gave away a Lightspeed Zulu 3 headset to our winner, William Dubois of Santa Rosa, New Mexico. And now we are giving away another one, but this time for the holidays, it's going to be a Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset that we're giving away on December 1st. All you need to do in order to win this headset is to log into SocialFlight. You get the app for your phone and just check in even once at your local airport. If you check in even once, you are entered during that period to win that amazing Lightspeed Delta Zulu headset. And if you go and fly and go to different airports and check in and compete and be on our leaderboard, well, then you get extra entries and increase your chances to win. So very, very cool things. Of course, we're all here to support General Aviation and get you out there and flying with tens of thousands of cool places to fly, events, things like that. Just SocialFlight is just chock full of it. So please go check it all out to support General Aviation. Tonight's broadcast is brought to us by Continental Aerospace Technologies. I'll tell you, I'm a huge fan of Continental, and they are a supporter of SocialFlight. They power the Bonanza that we fly as well. And you know, with tonight, when we're talking about Tecnam aircraft, their CD170 diesel engine is something that we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about that they use that in the P210. Their Gitso 520S that's used in Tecnam's P2012 Stoll and the Traveller. There's just a ton to talk about. They're a fantastic company, and if you are looking for engine or engine parts and support for your aircraft, you just cannot do better than going directly to the factory with Continental. So now I would like to proceed to tonight's show. I have to tell you, against the landscape of 50-year-old General Aviation aircraft designs, there is one company that continues to innovate and release new aircraft at a staggering pace, and they do it with style. Their name is Tecnam. I met David Copeland, Tecnam's Director of Sales at AirVenture this past summer, and I have to say I was astonished at how modern, efficient, and frankly beautiful the aircraft were, both inside and out. Tecnam's story as a family-owned company is fascinating, and David Copeland knows both Tecnam and the general aviation industry like few others. He's a veteran executive with experience ranging from Raytheon's Beechcraft aircraft to Mooney, Mid-Continent, and now Tecnam. I am absolutely thrilled to have him here on the show tonight. I'm going to bring him on the line now, and please help me welcome to SocialFlight Live, David Copeland. How are you doing, David?
Hey, Jeff, thank you. Thanks for having me on this evening. It's awesome to be here with all your people.
Oh, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here. And so I have to tell a personal story about this because my boys and I, Jake, Ben, and I, we spend, this, for me, it's 30-something years of going to AirVenture. They've gone as long as they can remember. And so we've seen a lot of planes, and I mean it very sincerely when I tell you this story, which is, we were going around the show looking at all different things, and one of the areas we found ourselves in was in the classic aircraft section, where you've got the stagger wings and Stinsons and all these other things from this golden era of aviation. And we happened to be looking at the details, which included things like, for example, little things like door handles and pitot tubes and things that were incredibly crafted. And I remember us looking at a Stinson, and I'll show a picture of this later on, where the door handles were these polished, bullet-shaped, aerodynamic, crafted handles that we were just chatting about how cool all of that was. And it was shortly after that we came over, met you, and got a tour, in this case mainly focused on the P2010. And we saw this amazing connection because it was the handles on the P210 that were polished, crafted, aerodynamic. They weren't like so many other aircraft, like either folded out of, sheet aluminum or just taken from a car. Like they were actually beautifully designed and crafted, and everything else about the aircraft was like that. And so I want to launch there and have you tell me a little bit about the company, its history, and how something like these handles came to be.
Great. Well, there's a lot of history behind that. You're 30 years. I'm going to celebrate 50 years at Oshkosh this year. So I know there's a lot of kids trying to chase and outdo me, but we're going to have a little celebration, not only at Tecnam for 76 years, but we're celebrating our 75th year right now. And a lot of that, like you talk about, we call it artistry in flight. We look at retro designs, we look at the industry, and I think 75 years of innovation is really where it's all about. Being in Italy, where Ferrari and all the other great companies are for cars, doesn't hurt the fact that we might borrow some ideas and they'd borrow some from us, because they are known for their craftsmanship, their quality, their innovation, and their style. And I think that really goes to the fact of even the door handles. I mean, every detail in the Grand Lusso that you were looking at, and even in our other aircraft, whether it's a P92 or a 2008 or our Story, any of those aircraft that we build have that same artistry in flight. And I think part of it is the fact that not only the 75 years that the family's been working on this and getting better and better and providing the public and our customers better and more artistry in the air, as we call it. We have all of our engineering team and our leadership team and our sales team are all pilots. So it's not just engineered on a computer. And I'll show you a little bit later about how the 2010 was actually how it came to life, which is pretty amazing. So, I think, and I appreciate the fact that you appreciate and your sons appreciate that artistry, because we go to great pains to make sure it flows well, it looks great, it operates well, and it does the job. So I think you'll see even in the interior shots, if you have any tonight, to show the folks that are on your channel, how it blends into the side. So it's not just sticking out, right? It's got to look great, and it's got to fit your hand. Like I was, even the control wheel. I mean, we had over 60 people handling the control wheel before it was formed for the Grand Lusso, and the leather and the stitching that went around it was specifically picked out by many people, including the owners of the company. So everybody in every little detail is involved. And like I was saying, I think that artistry actually goes into the aerodynamics of the aircraft and how they fly. The leadership team all fly, and they're all pilots, and they fly the production aircraft. So I'm not really sure too many other companies go to that extent. I know that they, beg, borrow, and steal from other companies. We don't. We really develop and engineer and do the artistry ourselves in-house. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it very much is. As a baseline for this, before we get deep into the aircraft themselves, I'd like to have you tell me a little bit more, expand on your background, because as you said, 50 years, first of all, blows me away. That's amazing. And as I gave a brief overview of your background, but you understand these other companies. You know what it's like at Beechcraft, at Mooney, at some of these, what the other companies are kind of dealing with. Yeah. Tell me a little bit about your background, how you got involved in that, and then I'll bring up some of those pictures and let's dive in.
Well, Jeff, I think we visited real quickly at Oshkosh about, how do we all get involved in aviation? My parents, I think it's a legacy that I'm living, a legend that, I hopefully will fulfill and leave to my kids and our family and those generations behind. But, my dad was an Army paratrooper, so it kind of started there, and he taught my mom to fly. And during the flying lessons, I told this story to many, and people are probably, maybe some people that are on this cast tonight will have heard this, but they say, how'd you get involved in aviation? Well, my mom made all the right things when she was checking the list for her check ride and her tri-pacer out at the airport here in Wichita, Kansas, but she forgot to get a babysitter. So I sat in the back seat in a bassinet at 3 weeks old in a tri-pacer for her check ride. So fast forward that to, we were Piper dealers throughout the Midwest, and then we actually bought an airport in Wichita called Rawdon Airfield and renamed it Copeland Airport. And that's right now, you can see it, it's Beach North or Beechcraft. That facility is still standing. They reworked the runway across Central so they could bring in the jets. So that's kind of how it started, driving back and forth in my 66 Delta 88 to flying lessons every day after school. and then going to the airport to work. And we didn't join country clubs. We flew. My dad started the Flying Dentist Association. He also started the International Comanche Society. So we flew
Really?
all over the country, 40 plus states. We flew on the weekends, all over the place. And one of the reasons that we're in Wichita, the air capital of the world, is the fact my dad wanted to be able to fly in one day in a single engine airplane to any part of the United States, and this is the place to do it. So that's kind of how it all started. There's a lot that went along the way. I'm very blessed that we had the Grumman American and Rockwell dealerships. So I kind of learned how to demo airplanes and how to sell airplanes, and how to pump gas, and how to do all those things you do at an airport. And then was an airline pilot for American for a while, and that was fun. And then met my current wife of 33 years, and she was working at Cessna, and we raised a family. So it's been a great career. It's been fun. It's been I've looked at the seminars that you've had and the people you've interviewed, and I'm blown away by the people, whether it's Jack Pelton or the Bertan brothers. I think that those are the people that I look up to, and I think that all of us, if we can make just a small difference in aviation, I think that's what my parents did by starting aviation companies. My mom was also a president of the 99s, and she started the first World Aero Congress for women to learn, get involved in aviation. And this was a dynasty that didn't exist 30 years ago, and she started that. So, those little check marks along the way. I've got more check marks to make so I can leave my mark as well. But I think, working for Tecnam allows me to do that, because we can show and demonstrate and deliver aircraft like nobody else in this industry.
Wow. Okay. So there's more to unpack in everything that you just said than I could ever cover in an hour, but you need to write a book, my friend. That is amazing. Flying Dentists, Comanche, starting both of those along, dealerships, holy mackerel.
Yeah, it was fun. It's just building on my things that I love to do and make a difference in life. When we talk about books, I do plan to write a book, especially about my international travel. When I was at Cessna, we were involved in some pretty crazy situations, and I was blessed to travel internationally. And I think that culture, I thought, I always remember that the kids won't remember the toys, they'll remember the travel. So our kids have traveled a lot, and that's just like my parents took me all over the world. So I think that's really helpful in understanding culture and understanding situations and understanding where people are coming from, because we're selling Tecnams all over the world in every country. So I think it helps us as a sales team and leadership, and looking to what people want and building an aircraft to expectations, and hopefully to exceed those expectations. But a part of that is Tecnam's book that our PR director wrote. It's 356 pages long about the history of our company. So I really don't like to travel with it because it weighs about 6 pounds, but it's a fascinating story about the 75 years of the company that we proudly celebrate. We kind of celebrate every day with milestones for the industry and internally of really making a difference, whether it's in sustainability, whether it's in innovation and certification. We don't sit back. We, like you said earlier in the introduction, we usually introduce 2 new airplanes a year, and we're on track to do that this year. And certification of 2 aircraft in this coming 12 months is really going to be exciting for us as well, on top of some other programs we can't talk about tonight. So it's pretty exciting about every realm. And Tecnam, if you look at the certification path and you look at what we've got, we built 44 different models of 8 different platforms. So it's pretty amazing to try to keep it all straight. And also, we're building the US market with Tecnam US, and in Canada as well. So that's beginning to spread. I think people understand, where we're coming from, and they look at, parts availability, and they look at, reliability, they look at innovation and safety, certification, and all those things. And it kind of adds up to what we're doing today, is adding all the best of those, and the best, like you said, everything from the door handle to the Continental engines that we're using, and the Rotax engines and the Lycoming engines, and all our great partners at Bose and at Garmin, and they're all of them. We're the best of the best. One thing that is very different that I want to make sure that I do talk about is the fact that, during the pandemic, we really didn't have a slowdown because we build 86% of the aircraft in-house. So, besides wheels, tires, and brakes, and propellers and engines, and and Garmin, of course, our avionics, we build about everything. So seat tracks, we, hand stitched leather, everything. So that really helped us excel and continue to innovate and deliver aircraft when a lot of the other companies were basically sitting with the hangar doors open and nothing to deliver. So I think that's really made a difference, and we learned a lot through that. I think all of us did, but we weren't slowing down. We're actually building a new factory to increase our production about twofold in some of our production lines.
Wow. So please answer kind of the obvious question to those of us in the United States, which is, with 75-year history, why is it that for most Americans at these air shows, it's fairly new to start becoming familiar with the aircraft that you've got here?
Well, I think that, you know, it's just about 2 to 3 years ago that we started looking at the US. I mean, we have an 89+% market share in Europe. So of course, that's where the company's based overseas. And I think that's an easier backyard. All of our aircraft are EASA certified prior to. So, you know, that until we looked at one of the largest, if not the largest market in the United States, I think that we started to dip our toe in that, and we found out and also I think it came with the right products at the right time. I mean, we've got MoGas products, we've got diesel Jet A products, we've got sustainable SAF products, we've got, you know, 100 low lead products. We're as diversified as any company, and we're the largest manufacturer to build the most aircraft in 3 categories: the LSA category, the single engine certified category, and the twin engine category. No one else in the world does what we do. And I think we're really well positioned where some of the other companies, which I admire very much, and I've worked for many of them, are really more into the turbine market. And that's a great market, and we're going to let them do that. But we're going to really focus, we're really the only people that are really solely focused on general aviation at not the lower end and not the LSA end, but a basic general aviation. Because as you and I know, and we've studied and we hear every day about the lack of pilots, it's staggering. And so if we can be a small company of under 600 employees that can make a big difference, we're number 2 and 3 every quarter of deliveries for Gamma. So that just kind of says this little company in Italy's doing something right.
That makes a lot of sense and is very true. I'm sure a lot of people are waiting on some of the eye candy here, so I do want to show and talk about some of the aircraft themselves. And it starts with the 2010, and then same platform as the Gran Lusso. And let's talk about this a little bit as an aircraft. Tell me a little bit about this. This is the one we spent the most time with, and of course, as you mentioned, there's a ton of other aircraft. But let's talk about these.
I'm tearing off a piece of paper, okay? And when I was at Oshkosh a couple of years ago, and I was talking to Fabio Russo, our lead designer and pilot, I asked him, I was writing and proofing a press release on our TDI, the first diesel aircraft to be in this category and class with the latest certification. And I was asking him, you know, more in my English to him, and we're trying to translate. And I just met the gentleman, and, you know, I was esteemed to even be in his presence because of all the aircraft that he's designed for us. And I said, Fabio, I said, how do I say this without saying Italian design and Italian this and that? Because the press will take off on that. There's got to be something else than just Italian design. And I really like this story. It's pretty basic, but he said, okay, get me a piece of paper. Okay, so I rip off a piece of paper, and it was a little bit bigger than this one. And then he said, get me a pen. And I gave him a pen, and I'm like, oh, I'm in trouble. He's going to write something on it, right? And so he did this, if I can get my pen to write. And he did this, and he did it a lot better than I did. But he basically drew a line of that airplane right in front of us. And it was total silence. It was like, wow, that's the silhouette of that airplane. And I didn't do it as well. I practiced a couple of times, and I still can't design it like he did. But people like that are everywhere at Tecnam, right? You know, and we're blessed to have, you know, the environment that we have and the sustainability that we've had in our employment to build an airplane like that. I mean, it's incredibly beautiful. And I think that, you know, especially at MBAA and at Oshkosh and Sun and Fun, we're in front of large crowds at the air expos, and people come up to us, and I love to just stand back and either have them open the door and take a whiff of the Italian leather, because it's abundant. And the other thing that I think it's really cool for them to stand back and look at the airplane and hear what they say. Beautiful, it's right, the aerodynamics are right, look at the wing, look at how it's designed, look how smart they were about this. I mean, this didn't come, you know, basically from a computer, it came from a piece of paper like this. And I think that artistry literally came from our team and our leaders, and of course the Pascale family and their 3 generations of leadership and investment and resources to get what we've got today and what's coming in the future. So, very blessed to be able to represent the company in that way. But, when you have things like that sitting on the ramp, I mean, it's pretty hard not to like it.
Yeah, no question about it. And one of the reasons I appreciate it so much, of course, I've been in the industry for quite some time, and
Right.
if I think about it from the cockpit first, if a non-pilot comes to me and says, "What do you love so much about flying?" I always say, "Well, you've got this incredible blend of focus and experience and expertise and things you have to do with beauty surrounding you and awe-inspiring things and artistry at this all happening at the same time."
Right.
That you can be proficient flying IFR and thinking all these things and then see this gorgeous layer of clouds.
Right.
The industry of building aircraft and of making products for aviation, it's hard to get a blend of those same things. It's hard enough to engineer products and then get them certified that sometimes it's hard to get the artistry part in. We see breakthrough products that show up at AirVenture and you look at our great, and then sometimes you're like, this is awesome, and then quietly people are like, this is great, but it looks terrible. Like, the engineer made it through the whole process, but maybe it didn't get made gorgeous, and other things get made gorgeous and show up as skeletons that you're going to promise someday and go on the wall of brochures that we have and never make it to reality.
Right.
And so you manage to have the blend of both of them. How is it that Tecnam is able to certify, as you mentioned, so many different platforms, 8 platforms and all these different variants, and then more to come when some companies can never get one done?
Well, I think it's not only 75 years of experience, but I think we're a super agile company, right? Because the leaders, I mean, it takes just 1 or 2 people to make that final decision. And it's very held tightly. I think the fact that they're all pilots and they blend very well with our engineers who are all pilots, and I think our in-house design center and the fact that they help design all these aircraft, so they've all got to fly right. They've got to look right and they got to fly right, and that's a very delicate situation, like you just said. I mean, it may look great, but it's never going to make the air, or you've got to add all these things to it. The aerodynamics that we put into the P92 wing is fantastic for training, right? Slow, fat wing, awesome aircraft, flies around 40 knots. I mean, that's just an incredible airplane to fly and to land, right? And perfect for training students. But yet, you're going to touch the stick in that aircraft, and you'll feel like, and it looks a lot like an F-16, right? So those are the things that people and things that we've designed into the airplane that may be a little subliminal, but it's not by chance, right? So every little detail is looked at like that from the top down, and a lot of customer feedback and a lot of owner feedback. Over these years, we've been able to do that. And also, as we know, I mean, it's challenging to get all these aircraft certified. I think one of the things that we look at is focusing on this network and not spreading ourselves too thin into other networks of turbine aircraft and doing, winglets and try to break the speed, sound barriers and all that stuff. We're not into that. And also, you probably noticed that the P-Volt program was put on hold and the NASA program was put on hold because of the fact that battery program and the power to do what we want to do at a weight and a speed and an artistry can't be done right now for us. So we're not going to put fictitious things out there on the internet, and we're not going to put things out there that don't make sense for us. So we came out a little bit early and said, hey, we had a partner of Rolls-Royce. I mean, that's who we partner with, right? And we couldn't make it happen. So we're looking at other things, whether it's a hybrid or whether we continue to look at electric, and we continue to look at more sustainability within our fleet, that we lead that record in sustainability in our MoGas powered aircraft and even our diesel powered aircraft. So yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think having the staff that we've got, the leadership that we've got, the artistry that we even have on the floor building the aircraft is amazing. You and I, and we've all been, a lot of the people that are even on this call tonight have been to the best of the best. They've been to Boeing, and they've been to Airbus, and they've been to Beechcraft. They built great airplanes, and Cessna, the legacies there, and to our other partners. I mean, all great companies, but I don't think anybody does it like Tecnam, and it really shows. When you all came up to the display, you have been around, you've seen it, and when you look at our aircraft, there is a big difference.
Tell me a little bit about the family. Tell me about the aspect of instead of being a large corporation owned by another large corporation or something like that, what the impact is of the fact that you're family owned.
Well, I'm going to go back to a quick story I might have shared with you about, when I was going to the airport, about every day I would see Olive Ann Beach driving her light blue Fleetwood Cadillac with a white top and white leather interior to work, right? And later on in life, she had a driver and the Lear family that has their home still here in Wichita as generations. And those people are no longer with us. And I think the fact that the Pascale family is here and it's third generation, and those people are very actively, they live and breathe this every day, much like the pioneers of Olive Ann Beach and her family and the Lears and all those people, the Wallaces, all those fantastic people. A lot of them were right here from Wichita or the Midwest, grew up and did the same thing that I see Tecnam doing. And the reason that there's a P on the tail is the Pascale family. So we never forget when we look at an airplane, really who's at the root of this is their family and their passion as well for doing the right thing for aviation in the future. That they're really focused on, green environment. That's another thing that you don't see a lot of companies talking about. They want to leave this place better than they found it, with aircraft for the future and safe. I mean, certification is a big deal. I mean, it'd be easier for us to take an old certification of an aircraft and just keep driving it along and maybe updating the avionics and putting some slick seats in it and maybe putting a wild paint scheme and maybe even a different prop and setting it at a show with great lights on it. That doesn't work for us. We have to have a fresh design with fresh certification to meet the very latest in FAA and EASA standards for the world. And that's what we're doing every time we do that. And it's interesting that there's that lineage that still goes on, and the FAA will approve those. And I won't get off on that tonight. But if anything, I think that's probably the thing that we look at is if there's a fair playing field, that one's not fair at all, because we're delivering aircraft to the very latest in FAA standards and the EASA standards and other standards for the countries around the world that we take validation in. So we take that very seriously, if you can't tell.
Yeah, and it's true. Other companies are grandfathered in with old certification standards and things like that. And the other thing, which is, it's fortunate that we have it in general aviation, that we get something new, but it's unfortunate that most of what comes new in other platforms is based on other companies come out with an STC or come out with a new product, and they aren't changes to they aren't changes to the aircraft, really. They're adding an STC that is kind of aftermarket, or making a change to avionics that is, again, basically aftermarket, and saying this is our new plane. But on a very positive note, I do want to say, catch on that Olive Ann Beach thing that you just said, because there is this beauty of recognizing an icon in the industry and grasping that. And my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, is when you look at something, and I am a Beechcraft fan big time, you personally, when you were there, grasp onto that, because there's a reason that those aircraft have this big B on the tail. Is that
okay? Yeah, we've done so many fun things in our family. When I was working at Beach, and very proud of the fact that we spent some time there, sold some great airplanes and jets. That was really great company, and they still produce great airplanes. And so I think we're looking at a way to differentiate ourselves, right? And I always said, let's bring it back. And I started with a B, means bring the Beechcraft back to the tail, bring the B back, right? And that was a big campaign that a couple of us got on, and we were successful in selling it to management, because at that time, I think it was owned by Raytheon, and people weren't really buying Raytheon airplanes or buying Beechcraft airplanes, right? So we had a campaign to bring back the Beech B to the tail, which you even see as one of the most popular paint schemes around, is the black and red and white and kind of a beige. It's still on a lot of King Airs that are flying around even today. They make renovations of that. So we decided to bring that back, and the interiors team and the exteriors team did an incredible job of bringing that back and showing the people. And it was the most popular paint scheme, continues today to be. Also, I think a big part of that is my mother started the Kansas Aviation Museum. Back then, it was the Wichita Aeronautical Historical Association, to preserve the iconic history that we have here in town. And way back when Beechcraft had a big, bright red neon sign on the side of the building on East Central, they took it down when they brought the Hawker over and changed up some of their branding, right? So that happened to find its way to the Kansas Aviation Museum. And during that time, we said, what a great idea to bring the Beach Bee back to Beechcraft. So we brought it back, and everybody that drives east on Central now will see that bright red neon Beechcraft sign very proudly that designates parallel to their main runway there at Beach. So, you know, if you have just a little bit of difference and making a difference in aviation, that's one of them that I think we did, is bring back the Beach Bee. And it was the right thing. And I think even today, I mean, you see it all over the place, and I saw it just at very proudly on all of their branding. So that's just a small thing. I mean, she used to deliver the aircraft, and my mother and Pat McEwen, a great friend of our family, the McEwens are fantastic people, and they raced together, and Pat, they used to fly their 1969 B-35B, still in the family, still flown by one of the McEwens. And that aircraft was personally delivered by Olive Ann. It was really cool, and the keys and the aluminum grip paint. So those things I'll never forget. And I think those are iconic moments for us to, you know, it's a classic airplane that will, you know, the design of that. I think some of those classic designs were lost possibly along the way as we try to go into different divisions and to do this and do that. I think the parallel there is that Tecnam hasn't lost that artistry, they haven't lost that legacy, and they continue to operate with incorporating those things into the flight and how it's supposed to feel and how it's supposed to fly. I think that sometimes gets lost with the IP that's sold off to other companies around the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I've certainly seen that through my career as well. It's hard when founders and key, you know, drivers of what a name means tends to get lost sometimes in the corporate environment. I want to take people inside now of the aircraft to give them an idea what it is that we're actually talking about. And I've got a couple of pictures here, but this doesn't look like what you'd see out of a typical aircraft when you get in, even ones that are more modern a little bit. This is impressive. And one of the things that we noticed when we climbed into it, first thing we noticed, no screw heads anywhere. We couldn't find screw heads anywhere, which seems like it seems like you go into even what's considered the brand new interior of some other brands, and they still have screw heads everywhere. You know, it doesn't look like what you'd expect when you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars and you're thinking modern design. No screw heads at all. The other thing was, I was amazed when we got into it and we're starting to get everything arranged, and you're like, oh, the seat's power. And we reached down, we hit a button, and your seat just rises to whatever level. I'm like, wait a minute. I know this is what cars do, but I've never been in a GA plane that had a power seat like that. And the center console had places that made sense, and the wires come out for your phone, and the chargers work, and it's just, holy mackerel. That's what this. So take me a little bit through this interior as I show this one, and then we'll flip to another one.
Well, I mean, you start at the headliner. It's all leather headliner, the finest Italian leather, and just the way every touch surface in the aircraft is leather, is Italian leather. So everything you touch is leather, except of course the seat belts and some things like that. But you can see the tufted leather on the seats. We take several designers, not only automobile designs, but also fashion is a big deal, of course, for Italians. And so we try to incorporate those ideas and those looks into an ergonomic design that's comfortable, which is not an easy combination. In this aircraft, we redesigned the center console to include, you know, even the parking brake, moving that to the center, making it easy for somebody to park an airplane. You don't think about that, or making it easy for them to hook up. Of course, everybody's into their phones, so you've got to have that. They've got to be the right size for the Android and the iPhones to put down in the center console. For charging, you don't have wires running all over. You don't have them plugged into the you know, near the avionics or near a door when you need to get out, whatever. So we put that all very nicely into the center. Also for the back seat passengers, we have the same amenities back there. I think one of the things I don't want to miss, and I don't know if you have that picture, but this aircraft, the 2010 series, has a third door, which is amazing for the backseat passenger. So you can put a 6'5" person in the back seat of that aircraft with the front seats all the way back and not touch your knees on that.
I'll see whether I actually, I definitely have that. Let's get back to that.
So
There we
there it
go.
is. Yeah. So, I mean, that just makes sense, right? Why don't we have 3 doors in an airplane, right? We don't need to come up over the wing and crawl down into it and do a hatch. Open it like a car, like it
Right.
should feel right, right? So we go
Yeah.
across and it has the articulating seats. Everybody has a window seat, of course, and that we've actually, as we've noted in there, the aerodynamic lines from the outside, we even put a window past the baggage compartment for that, just for that look of that Italian sleek aerodynamic design. Um, it's pretty.
That's an example right there of one that I want to touch on, and let me
Right.
bring something. It's not easy to see from these images in particular, but there were two things that were really of note. One was that window you said, which is this line that you can kind of see in this of the front window, the back window, but then there's this third window over the baggage area, which clearly an accountant or a typical engineer might look at it and say, why would you do that? Like, it's unnecessary. It's not gonna, it doesn't really bring much light back into the cabin. But the style of it, the fact that it exists is impressive. And I believe when we were talking with you, you equated it to yachts and how those are designed.
Right. Also, I think in our industry, I think you'll see some of the designs that do paint to fake a window. I've been in companies that actually do that. They'll sell you a piece of plastic or something to put over or a decal to put on to make it look like it's bigger than it is, and some jets that I've seen, but that's not what we do. We do it right, you know, and also it just adds more ergonomic feel for the aircraft. And like when you open the baggage compartment, you know, how many keys do we really need, right? You don't want one for the baggage compartment too, because they all get lost and they're all keyed wrong and all that. We've been all through that. There's one key for the airplane all the way through. It's a push start, just like your car. You have a pull just inside, like when you're at the finest automobile. So we take that as a reference point, how it should feel, how it should look, the power seats, how high it should be. The visibility is fantastic in this airplane. Actually, this aircraft flies a little bit nose down attitude, so you have even better visibility than most. So it really, just the artistry of the inside and the outside were very, very carefully designed for people today, not yesterday, but today, looking forward.
The other thing when you talk about details there to help people understand that is you when you mention the baggage compartment, there is no latch for the baggage compartment on the outside. You open the rear door, you reach in, there's a release, it's all perfectly smooth. You look at it and you're like, how does this work? And then in a moment you realize there's a button and it just opens.
Right. No screw heads and no outside latches. That's what we like, right? We want it as smooth as possible.
Definitely. And before we actually leave the 210, because I want to make sure we talk about the other aircraft and we talk about a bunch of other topics, I want to show that last thing, since I am now, I guess, turning into the door handle guy. This is the Stinson one, but this is the inside of your door. This doesn't look like an aircraft door.
Yeah, and that's just the 2010. That's not even the Grand Lusso, so it even gets better than that. So yeah, I mean it is really, really, really cool. I mean, it's just the thought of everything and where your arm's going to be and how you know, when you're resting your arm, where is it going to rest and how's that going to be, and you know, after an hour or two, how that's going to feel. So I think, you know, pockets and places to put, you know, Chrysler were the people that, you know, made cup holders, so we had to make sure we had enough cup holders in the aircraft. So we try to incorporate all those things, and also we're not just selling this aircraft in the United States, we sell it around the world. So things that work in Europe or sizes might not work here. So we try to, you know, we've invested with the best vendors and best support that we have, whether it's Continental or Lycoming or Rotax, or whether it's, you know, the rubber that's on the tires, or all those things are very, very precious to us to make sure that we're offering the very best.
Wow. Well, let's talk a little bit about the rest of that product line. So we have time for a few other things there. And so these are just a few other ones. I'm going to start over here with one that's getting a lot of attention right now, which is the P Mentor.
Yeah, that's fun. So we introduced this at Aero Friedrichshafen in April of a year ago, actually, in April, and it with rave reviews, you know, almost 100 orders just during those couple of days of the show. This aircraft is revolutionizing the training market and also the personal owned market. There hasn't been an IFR two-place single engine certified IFR aircraft since the 152, and this is that airplane. Now, this is nothing like a 152. That was in 1973, and we take it to 2023, and we have an aircraft with all the latest as far as power with our fuel-injected 912 engine from Rotax to the sliding canopy that's been very refined, much like what I grew up in, flying a Cheetah and a Tiger and a TCAT. I mean, this has a lot of those really cool aspects of it. Also with the touch screen that we have from Garmin, the very latest there, the seats. If you're 6'5", you're going to fit in this airplane great. Actually, the person that's flying that is Francisco Sfera, one of our flight test pilots, and he's 6'5" at least, and has his headset on, and you can see he has plenty of headroom there. So a lot of people that came to, we have to have one at Oshkosh this year on display before it was certified, and it was amazing. We put people in the airplane. Sometimes people don't let you sit in the airplanes. We want people to sit in the airplane, want them to feel the airplane, want them to look at the airplane. So we also, a laminar flow, all one piece leading edge. The aerodynamics of that aircraft are fantastic. We had some of the leading media teams over there recently to fly the airplane. And my most important thing to get from them was their first words when the canopy was back. They slide the canopy back, and I want your first words, what you thought of the airplane, okay, unbiased. And they say it's a fantastic training platform and no surprises. Those almost every single time they said that. It doesn't drop off in a stall in some strange way. It wants to fly, right? All of our aircraft like to fly. We don't want any strange things. We don't want to have to add BRS systems in there to get certification. This aircraft flies right. And again, back to the P92 and back to the 2010 series and even to our 2012 series, they all fly right. A lot of time and engineering has gone into the aerodynamics of this aircraft. So that alone is pretty exciting. And then the fact that we're certified and actually validated in over 16 countries already, we're anxiously awaiting the certification of the aircraft by the FAA, and that's actually a validation. It's certified. He also certified the airplane immediately upon its presentation, and 16 other countries followed. So we're anxious to get some airplanes delivered here in the United States. We've got a great backlog of aircraft. As I said, we're building a new factory to add on to the current production because we see the future not only of this aircraft, but some others to follow. So it's pretty exciting to have the only single engine IFR certified aircraft since the 70s in your backyard, right?
That is very, very cool.
It's really cool.
I also appreciate when you're talking about flying qualities. I've been fortunate enough to be invited to fly many new LSAs that come out, that many of them look, to be honest, really sexy, and it looks cool, it looks fun. You get in them and they don't all fly great. And I love that you also harken back to the Grumman. I'm a huge Grumman. Our first aircraft was a Traveller, and I worked with the AYA organization tech director for many years, so I'm very passionate about Grumman aircraft, and they have that feeling, they have that passion of how much fun they are to fly. And so the idea of bringing all of that together with good flying qualities in what you're doing here with the P Mentor is very cool.
Well, thank you. And we think it's just wait till it lands at your airport. It is going to be a show, let me tell you, because we've taken it on a couple of stops on the way back from Oshkosh, and it was just every student could get there. And it's built for a rugged environment as well, which is important. It's not just looks great, but it's got to operate right, and it's got to operate at a very low cost of operation. It can take avgas and MOGAS. So those are really important to what we think the future of aviation is. I mean, it doesn't take two votes up in Washington to change what's going to happen with our fuel. And so we've seen that go on and threaten even the 100 low lead. Again, like you said earlier, we're not an STC company. We want to make sure we're prepared for the future. And Rotax is a fantastic partner of ours to provide an aircraft that does just as well on MOGAS as it does on avgas. So we're pretty blessed to have all that combination, and it's ready now. It's ready to go right now, which is not some futuristic thing. And also the sustainability, I'm going to say that again. our training aircraft, if you go from your first flight all the way through to your certificates, advanced certificates, you will save the environment 62% in emissions. And that's a big, big deal. If I was to put it on a piece of paper, you'd be blown away by how many cars that would fuel, how many houses it would fuel, all of that together. One single aircraft and one single pilot being able to do that is pretty amazing. So that's across all of our fleet. And just another point, this is not an LSA, this is a certified airplane. So that's pretty exciting for us too, because we're going into a whole new realm of a whole new development phase of, okay, we have our LSAs, they're super successful and continue to sell very well. And now we've created a backlog for this to be certified, FAA certified aircraft, the P Mentor. So I can see a lineage of that aircraft as well. So, you know, I think we go back to, you know, what our focus is of our company, and you can see we've heavily invested into not only very small aircraft such as an LSA, we continue to improve each one of those aircraft. We don't forget about them, we continue to improve them, and then bring along a totally new aircraft like the P Mentor.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned that, of course, there's a big difference between LSA and certified. And one of the things a lot of flight schools have discovered when they've attempted stuff with LSAs is it's tough when it comes to the durability to be able to keep something that needs to be a workhorse. Let's do a little bit of a speed round here with our time, because we do have some other ones. And you know, let's talk about the 2006 for a second. This is obviously a twin engine, but twin engine training right now is hard to come by.
Right.
And this seems like it's a good option.
Just look at it and fly. It's pretty cool looking, right? Who wouldn't want to, you know? So, you know, we talk about, you know, who your audience is, right? You have a great audience here. And the pilots, I'll bet you there's a couple on that have a Jeep, or they have a fancy truck, or they drive a Tesla or something like that. They're those people. And we go up to flight schools, and that's what's in the parking lots now. And so that's the kind of aircraft they expect to go fly, right? Something that is stylish, something that is, you can say sexy if you want to, something that is up to date, something that is fun to fly, right? Something that flies right. That airplane flies right, like the other ones that we designed. A lot of attention is done. This aircraft was designed by pilots for pilots. It's an all metal airplane. The other aircraft are composite and metal. This is an all metal airplane. So we put the Garmin stack in here, the G1000 in it, and retractable. It's the number one selling twin in the market right now. So we're very proud of that. So that as well as the fact that, you know, I've flown Senecas as you have, and Aztecs and Apaches and Geronimo conversions and 310s and all those airplanes, and that are still somewhat found in twin engine training, multi-engine training schools, which is interesting. And I see it sad, because the fact that this aircraft is so much safer and has so much more better flying qualities and environment than any of those airplanes, and of the fact you get a lot more in your training dollar for this. A quick example is, you know, 100 horse on each side. One of the great things about not only the sustainability and green touch that this aircraft has, but it's 4.5 gallons per hour per engine, right? Can't beat that.
Add them up together, you don't get to a single.
Yeah, if you're multi-engine in pilot, and I'm always learning every time I go fly from great pilots and instructors that we fly with. So let's just say you're on final approach, and you know, and you're under the hood, and all those things are going on, and you really don't have to learn this airplane. You know, you want to learn to fly a twin engine airplane, and likely you're going to, you know, cut an engine or something like that. That's kind of what twin training is about. So we make that transition very easy from our LSAs, or from a P Mentor, or from, you know, in and out of a 2010 into this aircraft, right? So we want to make sure that the Garmin stack's the same, it's going to fly the same, it's going to be agile, it's going to be comfortable. All those things are across our product line, making it a kind of a seamless transition. But what makes this aircraft great is if you're flying some of those other aircraft that I mentioned, which are great airplanes in their day, you can say, your attitude's a little bit off, or your airspeed's off, or, you know, let's correct that a little bit, we're a little bit low. You can say that to the student and sit there and wait for them to make that correction. If you're in any of those aircraft that I mentioned, it's going to be my airplane. And as you know, as a student, that's not the word you want to hear, is my airplane, because then, you know, it's going to be a debrief that isn't very fun at the end. It's going to be a rework. You're going to have to go do that all over again, because it'll be something that we got to revisit, and you don't feel really great after that. So the rest of the lesson is kind of ruined, right? In this airplane, you have time because of the fact the way the engines are placed on the high wing of this aircraft, as well as the power of 100 horsepower each, the aircraft does not get away from you. You have time to say, hey, let's look at this airspeed, let's look at this attitude and correct it. And then we keep flying. And it's not my airplane, it's their airplane. And that's what they're there to do, is learn. So we found that as we put that into flight schools around the world, that's probably the number one thing, is ease of integration to this aircraft. It's easy to fly. And B, the transition to get your multi-engine rating is easy and shorter than any other aircraft. And as an operator, at only 9 gallons per hour, it's a great money machine.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. Now, the last one in our quick speed round, which is not all the aircraft that you have, but the last one that we'll cover right here in this, is one that is a bit of a surprise, I think, for a lot of people when Tecnam decided to tackle this, and that is the big guy, the 2012.
Right.
This is in service with Cape Air in my backyard here now, replacing a fleet of 402s. Tell me about this.
Well, it's pretty cool. You know, we're always, you know, want to get bigger and faster and all those things, but we saw an opportunity with a great carrier like Cape Air, and they came to us and said, you know, we want to replace some of our older piston aircraft, but we really don't want to go turbine, and we want something along this line. So they started drawing it up, and with years of work with them and design of the cabin and design of the doors, everything that it takes place to design the right aircraft, not only for passengers, but for cargo and combi and special missions, this aircraft has it all. And for under $500 an hour direct operating costs, you can't touch it, right? So this aircraft is unique in that way, keeping the lineage of a high wing aircraft with the engines up there so that the FOD doesn't become a problem. Loading and unloading, ground operations are easier, it's quieter. And then also having the 2 doors in the front, we learned that from some of our other aircraft that we build. And then making a STOL out of this, we call it simply Tecnam off limits. And that aircraft is also in the certification right now, period, along with the P-Mentor. So those 2 airplanes are coming up for certification. We're pretty excited about. So that really this aircraft catapulted us into that commercial world. And it's been super successful. We just delivered 2 airplanes to Hawaii. They flew nonstop from LA to Honolulu, which is amazing. And then we just delivered one this past week to the US Virgin Islands, and we'll have a couple more going from Guam into Hawaii soon. So, I mean, they're all over the world, and they've proven to be, you know, a workhorse. There's no other aircraft like this, especially at this price point, and this flexibility and sustainability that this aircraft has. So it's kind of in its own, you know, world, because there aren't any other pistons that are new that can do this. And if you don't want to go turbine and you need a twin-engine aircraft to go over water or for a special mission, or just for the safety and reliability of that other engine, this is that airplane.
Yeah, it is very, very cool to say the least. Let's talk for a minute about sustainability. When we look at things like even the options for the P2010, you've got the CD170 engine from Continental, which is a very cool engine and allows you to really opens up a lot of options and reduces the cost of flying. Tell me a little bit about your thoughts on sustainability and how Tecnam's going to use that in the future.
Well, like I said earlier, I think we're really well positioned with not only our Rotax having the MoGas and Avgas aircraft, but the diesel and the Jet A and the SAF powered aircraft. Nobody else has that in their product line, and we're spread across the product line. And of course, you mentioned the 170 series, the turbo that's in our Grand Lusso, and our TDI in the 2010 series. I mean, what a fantastic aircraft! Proven millions of hours in that airframe and power plant, and it's, you know, under 6 gallons per hour at cruise at 143 knots. Who can say that, right? And you know, we've had, you know, new pilots fly the aircraft, people that are coming out of a higher performance low-wing single-engine aircraft back into this aircraft because they want the smooth, they want efficiency, they want sustainability. They want the very latest certification. They don't want to carry around a parachute. Those are the reasons this airplane is so popular. And also it's at a great price point, right? Because we value price our aircraft. So, you know, you're gonna pay for all those things, but at a great value, which is awesome. So this aircraft, the TDI and the Grand Lusso, are big winners in that. They're in a class by themselves. No one else is building the aircraft with the artistry and with the performance and with the sustainability and the comfort of these aircraft.
Yeah. So last topic, which is a big one, but I still want to see what we can fit in having to do with what it means as an aircraft manufacturer. Tell me about the impact or how you're looking at Mosaic.
Well, that's interesting that you bring that up. We had a lot of questions as they posed that on us right before Oshkosh opened. Everybody's, the FAA released the preliminary view of those documents. It was a long time waiting, right? And there was a lot of talk about it. And Brazil has incorporated some of those same rules. We look at it as a company as we're already building aircraft that could comply to those. So we're not, really. We did recently. Respond to that inquiry and respond to the documents that were sent out for question. And we respect that. And we think that changes in aviation to get more people involved is really what it's all about. And that really, in the big word, if you capitalize sustainability, that means bring on more pilots. It's not just build efficient airplanes, right? To sustain general aviation, to sustain air traffic and transportation as a whole, we've got to train pilots. So that's why we focused, again, back to the fact of training pilots with aircraft like the P2006 and the P92 and the 2008 and the P-Mentor. Those aircraft in the 2002 as well, those aircraft are really the cornerstone benchmark airplanes that are training tomorrow's pilots today. So I think with Mosaic, all of our aircraft before they come over to the United States in the LSA category are EASA certified. All of them are anyway. But as far as that, so we're pretty well positioned for whatever speed or weight they want to put on it, because we're already certified overseas, and it wouldn't probably take a lot to change some manuals or some things that the FAA might require to do that. Some of the other manufacturers that are building LSAs that don't comply to those more rigorous standards for EASA and FAA are probably going to have to scratch their heads and decide whether they want to participate or not. We don't know how this is all going to turn out. Of course, recently, you probably read as well as I did that they've extended that deadline again.
Yeah.
We hope they get an administrator in there and that understands where we're all at for general aviation with the focus of sustainable flight and acknowledging companies like ours that are making a difference and building and certifying aircraft to the very latest certification standards. I think that's really the cornerstone of this is not, allowing companies that, got certification in the 40s and 50s and 70s to allow them to be grandfathered into their current certification. It's not right. So, and I know there's companies that can combat that all the way, but we just don't believe in that. We think current certification is the way to go. So I think Mosaic's going to touch on that, what the final speeds are going to be and the final weights are going to be. And us as a company, we might just design an airplane just for Mosaic. You never know. So there's more to come. I mean, I can see. So I haven't seen it, but I can think it, right?
I like that a lot. And any chance we can get you guys thinking about something in the category that we use for our business travel, 6 seats, 200-mile-an-hour goal, something like that? Is that anywhere ever going to be on a Tecnam radar?
We don't say no at our company, and we don't assume much. So I can't say, but that certainly hasn't been overlooked. The team was the leadership team was at NBAA, and they scoured over everybody that was displaying. So they don't miss much, right? And they have, like I said, artistry, and they've got some great engineers. So I'm sure there's something somewhere that I don't know about.
Absolutely. Well, David, thank you so much for taking time out of your evening to join us here and give so many people a clue into what goes on behind the scenes, and maybe introduce a few more people into Tecnam. And I hope I can get you to come back where I can dig into your personal story, because there is a book in all of that, and I want to hear those stories of your international travel and so many other things that you've done. So I hope you'll come back for a focus on that.
Well, I'm going to go register for the headset. I want to win the Lightspeed. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I appreciate the time. That's great. Thanks.
Well, have a wonderful evening, and thanks again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good night.
Night.
And thank you to all of you who've taken time out of your evening to join us here again on SocialFlight Live. We're off next week for Halloween, where everybody will be out there either flying or doing a pumpkin drop or something else. If you look in SocialFlight, you will find some amazing Halloween and fall-oriented events, literally pumpkin drops, pie-in, fly-ins, and so many other cool things. So be sure to check that out. And we're back on Tuesday, November 7th at 8 p.m. with aviation filmmaker Adam White of Hemlock Films. Really going to be a fascinating evening. He made the film The Restorers and Red Tail Reborn and so many other things. It's really worth taking a look at there. So please join us for that evening. On Tuesday, November 14th, after that, we're going inside the Skunk Works from Lockheed with Mr. J.B. Brown. And that is also going to be a deep dive with a lot of interesting things that you may not know about the Lockheed Skunk Works and what it was like in there. And then on Tuesday, November 21st, what's it like to fly the NASA Super Guppy? Well, we're going to talk to the team that makes that aircraft fly. Until next time, I'm Jeff Simon for SocialFlight. I wish you all blue skies.